an important program. The meeting is being recorded. And to talk about what other programs each of our organizations offers to support our campers and families the other 51 weeks of the year, if your camp is 1 week like mine is. This could include anything like weekend retreats for young adults, which is something that we at Burns Recover do, family camps, sibling retreats, sibling support groups, just any other youth programming that your organizations have outside of camp, and an opportunity to share what you do, and for everyone else to maybe leave with some ideas of what they can do if they're not doing it already. So I can start. The only thing that I can really talk about, something that we do on a consistent basis, is that we have a young adult retreat for burn survivors ages 18 to 25, but we also invite the campers who are returning the following summer as CITs. So some of our attendees are 17. So just the registration, just paperwork that their caregivers need to sign. It's typically over a 3-day weekend. So this year we're having a fall and winter one. It's over Columbus Day weekend, and then it's over President's Day weekend. And that was based on feedback from young adults who wanted more opportunities to spend time with their community. And during this weekend, the adults that we invite are senior staff. We pull from their knowledge base, and also the knowledge base of our board and people in our community, to spend time over the weekend talking about huge focus on life skills, which is also feedback that we got from the young adults who have attended in the past, like budgeting, applying for loans, interest rates, savings accounts, retirement. Like, these kids we spent like an hour and a half on financial literacy in February, and they still don't think it was enough. We also have at least one social outing. Like this year, we're going to go bowling. And we also have our community support specialist who would love to be on the call because she wants to meet everyone. So, but is in the hospital today doing peer support. She's not a patient in the hospital. We'll come, to clarify, we'll come and talk about, she's a burn survivor, so like her burn story. So the importance of sharing your story. And we also typically split the males and the females up to talk about relationships and intimacy. As a burn survivor, but just as like a young person trying to figure out where they fit in intimate relationships. So I will say that for those conversations, I do tell our caregivers beforehand for the minors, just saying like, these are some topics that we're going to cover. And I've never had an issue with a caregiver saying like, I don't want my child to take part in that, because they're 17, like they're turning 18 very shortly. We provide transportation only if like it's out there that transportation assistance is available. The families need to ask for it. And we pay for lodging, meals, and all of like the activities that we do. So it's totally free to them, just like our camps. And that's what Burns Recover does. Who wants to go next?
Do you find that doing it twice a year, what's the size of your young adult retreat, and two, how much overlap is there between campers?
So this is actually the first time we're doing it twice a year. So I can't answer like how many come to the first or the second. The last 2 times that we've done it, when I've been in the leadership position, we have had at least 10 campers, at least 10 young adults at each retreat. And because we're offering one in St. Louis and one in Kansas City, but the one in St. Louis, we have people driving from Kansas City, and I fully expect that in Kansas City, we'll have people driving from St. Louis. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Sorry, background printer noise. How do you go about recruiting them for other than from camp, I guess, or if your older campers weren't CITs or anything? Because we're having issues recruiting young people that aren't just doing what their parents tell them to do.
Most of our attendees come from camp. We do have a few young people that had not been in camp for a few years, but still come to the retreats. I put our event on the Phoenix Society website, so we'll see if anyone applies from there. We do, for our age outs who are coming back as the CITs, we do pull them and talk to them about the retreat. I do a lot of texting and bothering people about applying. So I think I froze. Everyone else is frozen. Did I freeze?
Your audio was totally fine though. We heard everything you said, but your video, yeah, did freeze.
Okay.
It was
But that we have the same time. I mean, I would love to pull people that haven't come to camp as a way to introduce them to the camp community. But for now, most of our young adults who come have been involved in camp in some capacity.
Thanks.
Valerie, we struggled with that same population as well. We started a young adult summit back in 2013, and it started off strong, but as the years continued, we ran it for about 4 or 5 years. 20 to 25-year-olds, all of which were in camp, but they were starting to age out. They weren't necessarily coming back to be counselors. And it became a larger and larger struggle to get that level of participation. And we were holding this event it's actually at the resort where the conference is going to be next year. And, yet to reserve that spot, it's a pretty hefty, down payment to put on. And the return was a real struggle as far as the kids go. So we actually tried, asking them to put down a small deposit where, put down $50, put some skin in the game. And that was the last year that we did that. And when we asked for that and then said, we'll give you the money back at the conclusion of the conference, we got nobody. Just asking for that and holding on to it for the few months leading up to the event resulted in no participation. And that's when we took a step back and stopped our summit. We've actually been sending a few people here and there to Daniel's summit in February. But yeah, same thing here. Struggle with those 20-plus-year-olds that still fall into that age range for that type of program with the exact same, programming topics that Madeline had outlined.
Valerie, is that a struggle across your camps, Valerie, or is that specifically to this age group?
It's been pretty specific to the age group because we have pretty good campership numbers for our kids camp and for our little heroes. And so the young adult one was something that was going to be brand new for 2021. And then we ended up having some a conflict with another event for the burn community in the area. And so it ended up getting torpedoed. Well, not torpedoed, but we just had to scuttle it because it just wasn't going. So it was a bummer. But we've also tried doing young adult support groups and, hoping that will eventually lead to people buying into the young adult retreat. And even that's been a little tricky. It's still a lot of my mom's making me come to this or that kind of thing. So we're having trouble with that age group.
Yeah, so I'll go real quick. We're in that right now. So we typically had done our young adult retreat every other year. And we were supposed to do one in 18, and the person that was in my position in that year transitioned out. So we didn't do one that year because of the transition. Fast forward to COVID, couldn't do one last year. So we're doing one this year. So it's been a few years, but at the same time, we have a really strong community, and I believe we have a really strong camp program, and we have 2 individuals signed up. Ours is the end of October. It's the last weekend in October. It's here in Colorado, and we can't get anybody to commit. And we're in this phase where we believe if we can get one, camper that's been to camp for many years and has relationships or a network with other, that they can convince others to come. We can't even get that one camper to commit, to get that momentum, that excitement going about other campers coming to the young adult retreat. So that's interesting to hear you all say that you're struggling with that, because we're seeing that same thing too.
I would like to say we haven't had a young adult program because we've always sent our kids to Mackenzie. We would go out to Georgia. And since they hadn't done it in the last couple of years, we decided to try it out and do something like what the whole intentions of what Georgia's like. It's that traveling to someplace different. So this year we did gender specific. So it was only women because I couldn't get any young men to come join us for anything. So we did young women, 18 to 24, and we did it at Old Town. So we had to do it like an away type place. So I secured rooms, I secured meeting areas. I kind of created an itinerary for the whole day and into the evening. All the meals were covered, the hotel stays were covered, and we had specific topics from which we could have discussions. And then we did tours, like we did a museum tour of Old Town. We did a couple of tours actually in Old Town. This is in San Diego, by the way, so not to confuse you, anyone. But it worked out. We had 5 young ladies that came. 3 of them were recent burn survivors. 2 of them came from our camp. But it turned out to be a really good bonding experience, I would say, for the young ladies as well. We anticipate that they're going to be coming back again the following year. They've actually have been staying in touch with us for other events since that happened, and this was back in March. So we were lucky in that sense, but I do, this is the first time we've done it, so I think we're going to make it an annual thing. But I do recall we had a very difficult time even getting kids to go to Georgia at one point. So we're hoping that since COVID had happened and more people wanted to do these staycations, that this would be an alternative to away camps.
So Leilani, was that a one night kind of stay or a program?
It was, yes, it was a one night. It was a Saturday into Sunday. Because a lot of our young ladies also worked, so we had to work around their working schedule. We really wanted to make this acceptable to them. We didn't want them to feel like they were giving up too much of something else. It was more important to come to this event. So we really had to ask them what their schedule was like, whether or not this was a good time for them to do it. We did a lot of pre-planning ahead of time because we already knew what our population who we've kept in touch with, what their work-life balance was like. And so that made it a little bit easier for us to coordinate an activity that everyone could participate in. We actually we had 7 that started out and 5 showed up out of the 7. So it was still pretty successful for us in that regard.
I can share what we do. I will just disclaimer, our ages are different than most other young adult programs. So that might be something to contribute with our numbers, but our ages are from 16 to 21. So that's kind of the mid ground that we found. And the reason why we do that age is because in order to be a CAT and in our camp leadership as a camper, we want to be able to get to know them on that young adult route. So they have to go to Young Adult Summit in order to even be applicable to become a CIT. And what we found, excuse me, with this young adult group was that it was really beneficial to have the 16-year-olds be able to talk and hear from the 18-year-olds about what it looks like to go and apply for colleges, to apply for scholarships. And then it was a nice thing for the 18-year-olds to talk to the 21 or the 20-year-olds. So it's 16 to 20, not 21, I apologize, to 20-year-olds to see like what it's like to be in college. So it was a nice like peer mentorship across the board. We don't house the 16, anyone under 18 with anyone older unless they are currently a CIT. So we had to have some CITs in the younger groups. And then they're all background checked and they're there to like make sure the younger ones aren't misbehaving. I think we have the same format as many of the young adult groups. It is a lot of sessions and a lot of like life skills that we're offering them. We do an etiquette dinner every year because some of them may have not experienced what it's like to go to a fancy dinner or to be in that experience. We do a boys and girls talk or gender talk, and we now have a non-binary group as well that participates. We do public speaking, and those are kind of the staples, as well as an open mic. And then everything else changes year by year. We have a curriculum that kind of rotates every 5 to 6 years. So it's kind of the same topics, but a lot of the things that you guys have already described. We do ours over President's Day weekend. So it's the same time every single year. We have anywhere from 30 to 35 campers come out. I think what's good about it is that we get a lot of campers who are not necessarily connected to our kids camp sometimes because they were burned as a teenager. So this is their first time entry to it. And it actually has been very successful. Like Phil mentioned, Phil does bring out a few people, and as well as Pat Barton from the BC Burn Fund, they usually bring out 1 or 2 people, but it's 35 is like our soft spot. We really don't want more than that because we want the intimacy of the group. We want them to mesh well. And I think anything bigger than that becomes, it's like a support group. Anything bigger than a 20 kind of throws off the dynamic. For us in this program, anything bigger than like a 35 changes things. Yeah, I think for us, it's been a successful program. We've been doing it for 20 plus years. So it's been a nice system within it. And most of the kids' incentive to coming is that we've selected certain counselors to represent different walks of life. And they gravitate towards wanting to see their friends again from camp, and then also wanting to learn from these counselors who have life skills that they may want to learn. So someone specializes in home repair, someone might specialize in automotive. We have a chef who comes every year and she does our etiquette dinner and she talks to them about food and nutrition. So it's a pretty diverse group of volunteers that are a part of it. And to Phil's point, we do actually charge them to come to this program. And it's usually effective for us. We charge $35 for them to come. However, we do put on the application if financial issues or something that's for that survivor, that they can always apply for a scholarship, which is really just them sending an email telling the foundation why they need a scholarship. And at this point, the reason why we do that is that we want them to have some personal responsibility that, hey, we're not saying you have to be financially that you have to pay for this, but we want you to take that step. Like this is, you're no longer a camper, you're starting to be an adult, take some initiative on this. So yeah.
Getting to, I'm not sure who had mentioned it earlier about work schedules. You know, again, when we were running the program, 18 to 25-year-old, you know, either schools in play, you know, college or some sort of secondary education, or they're working, and you know, with not all, but a decent amount of our demographics, you know, the ability to take a couple days off just isn't in the cards for some of our young adults. And I think, you know, I'm not sure there's a way of getting around that, but that definitely played a role in the probably the lack of applications or participation that came into our Young Adult Summit.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, Phil. After Leilani said they're doing just a Saturday night, I thought, oh, that might actually be a really good idea to start at like Saturday brunch and just go till Sunday afternoon or something, so people can have travel time, still do the things they need to do over the weekend, something like that.
And we kept ours, the intentions were very clear. We set it up front. This is what we would like to do when we come to these retreats. Um, I like Daniel's too, but we don't take anyone younger than an adult. We need to have them at the 18-year level. But I think with our young adults, it's a little bit different. It isn't so much on the life skills, so much as their own understanding of who they are since they've been burned or how their injuries may be affecting them. So it became more therapeutic, I think, with our group at the time. Now, again, this is the first time we've done it for this particular year because of COVID. And so we're looking at replicating it, doing it on an annual basis as well. But again, keeping the intentions specific, because it's not going to attract everybody. Not everyone's going to want to come if they're just going to be doing certain things. It's going to have to appeal to them. And so we do poll a lot of our attendees at other events, what they would like to see, what would they like to do in the future. So we kind of draw from that as well.
I know having a conversation, sticking with the young adults, having a conversation with Mark Koopman several years ago. I don't believe that they have a very structured, formal program for the young adults, but they do more adventures or retreats over a weekend. You know, you kind of dangle the carrot out there, something fun and exciting, and then you kind of sneak in your sessions during the downtime and stuff like that. And he said that's worked really well for him, and that's always stuck with me. And I'd like to eventually get to that point where, you know, maybe it's an outdoor camping adventure or something like that, hiking, whitewater rafting, something like that, something that will hopefully you know, energize those young adults. And then you know, in between doing that stuff over a day, over 2 days, you know, have those intimate conversations. But we haven't done that yet, but definitely something that we're considering. New approach to it.
I think that those smaller events throughout the year have been what we found is successful in engaging our survivors. And I think that's why we have a larger attendance to some of our programs, is that they can expect that like maybe once a month they're going to something. Plus, I think what it's been helpful, and I mentioned this before, is that it keeps their address or their contact information current because they move around so much. So I think them knowing that there's an opportunity to see their friends at least once a month, and then also that we have the most up-to-date emails and information on them, has always been beneficial for us in getting a hold of them. I'm also very lucky that we have a database that we utilize for the foundation. We utilize Salesforce. I'm not sure what other organizations utilize in like tracking their survivors. But having that database and being able to put in notes or be able to email them directly through that, or to pull a report of I'm looking for ages this and this, or burn survivors with this type of injury, it's super, super helpful, not only on the recruitment portion of it, but also in terms of reporting and statistics. So within Salesforce, and I know other databases are similar, you can do even when you create an event, you can say who attended and attach it to their record. You can have their applications even attached to the record. I know that people use Camp Docs as well. I also use Camp Docs, but I use Camp Docs and I integrate the Camp Docs information into my Salesforce because it is a profile versus Camp Docs is more of a registration form. So I like the Salesforce build out for that a little more. And it's they do have an API integration. So just throwing that out there. Any other types of programs, family camps, adult programming, other children programming, or other things, sibling programming?
So a few years ago, we started family day events. You know, the organization really did not have a program in place that included siblings, or a program in place where the young burn survivors' parents were involved in anything. And so we started doing those one-day events, baseball games, theater, hockey games, whatever it may be. We've done kayaking and things like that, and that's worked out really well for us. The amount of information that we've taken as feedback from our campers' parents, having that interaction with the parents, I think it really goes both ways. They're pretty honest with what their kids think of camp and how they're doing throughout the year, and you get this feedback that you send surveys out after programs, and you're lucky if you get a little bit, but speaking to them face to face at these type of events, having the dedicated time to talk to the parents, they have the ability to really elaborate on the change that they've seen in their children, and that's proved to be real valuable for us. And I think having the parents meet the staff and the volunteers provides them with some additional reassurances if they weren't assured already. Just having the ability to talk and meet with people that are watching their kids for certain periods of time. It's worked out really well for us. We've been doing those events for 5-6 years now. We typically do 2 to 3 a year. We're closer to the Chicagoland area, and that's where we started with, and that's where most of our burn survivor population in our database is at. But we've started expanding, moving into the southern and western part of the state. Smaller groups at that point, but nonetheless, rather than having everyone always come to us, we've started spreading out across the state, and it's worked out well. And the families are very appreciative of that, because 10 plus years ago, it was only camp at that time, and it was always northern part of the state, and so for us to go to them definitely helps them out, especially with some families that may have transportation issues or financial constraints, things like that.
Yeah, if we're talking family programming and stuff like that, I always got to shout out Little Heroes. It's our big family camp of the year, and we've changed our age range actually this year to be burn survivors ages 1 to 6, because we talked about it with the volunteer who usually works with infants during camp in case there are infant siblings or anything, and they go, yeah, we've actually had a burn survivor who was a baby in there before, and babies are babies. It's almost the same level of care that they would need. So our soft cap was 6 this year, but we're really going up to 8 because there's some families who have come in the past or were only able to attend virtually last year for their very first camp and just want to have their next year in a row. But the main focus of this camp is really the parents. The kids, the burn survivors definitely get their fair share of programming, but this one's really the focus on the parents and the caregivers, and how to recover, how to discipline your kids after a burn injury, and what the stages or signs of trauma are, stages of development, all those kinds of things, and just giving parents the reassurance to talk amongst each other openly and say, like, this is what happened, I feel really terrible about whatever it was, and now I just want to go forward and help the family grow and heal and get on with their lives in a safe way. So it's really interesting, and we have different leads this year. In the past, the people who established the program was Megan Bronson and Sam Price, and they've just been rock stars the last however many years we've been doing this program, like 15. So we have new volunteers this year, and it's really exciting because it's going to be a whole different dynamic. There's going to be a male lead as well as a female lead, and it's going to just hopefully bring a whole different vibe to the dads especially. So really excited about that.
Valerie, how long is your family camp or your little
This one's just a weekend and it's the whole family. So it's parents, siblings, everybody. If the grandparents live with them, we invite grandparents too. Whoever's usually taking care of the kids.
I'd love to see what you're willing to share in terms of curriculum or like planning or any documents that I could look at, because I would really love to do something similar. The young adult retreat was something that existed before I came here. So I kind of had a base of knowledge to work with. But I, like any other program, is just me
Yeah.
making stuff up.
And this one, we're really lucky because, like I said, it's just like a crack group of volunteers at the beginning, or our leads. So the parent leads do get a stipend because it's a lot of heavy lifting that they're doing, and they're in sessions for just a lot of the day doing heavy stuff. But yeah, I'd be happy to share what the past handouts have been. I'm not sure what's going to be used now that we have new leads who are completely just a different, it's a different vibe than who we've had. But we did have little lion hearts. Were they in BC? It was a Canadian burn camp that came and shadowed us one year so they could establish their own little heroes program, but they called it Little Lion Hearts. So it was really nice. So it was Heather Beveridge and I don't remember the other gal's name, but I think she's since moved on from that organization. But it was great having them. So if you're interested, maybe we can work up a shadow for next time.
Valerie, I'm curious, and obviously we've talked about your program so many times,
Yeah.
but I'm curious, what do you guys do in terms of curriculum for siblings? Do you guys offer anything?
Yeah, so it's still, the whole camp is there, supposed to be therapeutic camp, right? So the siblings have their own sibling lead who's been doing it for years. Part of the focus is still just saying, like, we're gonna focus on you specifically as a person and not the sibling of a burn survivor necessarily. Like, the spotlight is on you right now. So there's definitely some fun stuff. Usually at our usual location, we can do the rock wall or the ropes course. We're at a different location this year, so we're still kind of TBD on what fun activities we'll do. But there's always the opportunity for, I think they played 20 questions a lot last year, and that was really popular for whatever reason. We had a lot of older siblings who were like preteens and teens. Some years, the siblings we have might be, 7, and the burn survivor might be 5 or something. So it all depends kind of on the year and what our mix is. But they definitely get some love, get lots of love.
And you guys do talk about like what it's like to be a sibling of a burn survivor and things that they're struggling with and all that stuff.
Yeah, and helping with steps, and if they're going to school together and they see that their siblings being bullied, what might be the way to handle that, things like that.
We do a 5-day family camp at a YMCA here in Estes Park. And the one thing I'd mention is that we do what Phil does with did with his young adult retreat. We ask for a deposit for families because we really only have capacity for about 5 families. And if one of those families doesn't show up, it's a huge deal. It's 20% of our camp that just didn't show up. And so we do like about a $200 deposit. We ask for it in check form so that we can just give that check back, or, rip it up in front of them and say, listen, thank you for showing up. That's all we needed. We just needed you to come and enjoy the weekend, the week here in Colorado, and enjoy the camp.
Yeah, we've definitely been stood up a few times from camp families. Or one year a baby came that wasn't on a form at all, and it was just like, oh, okay, so we're gonna have 4 infants this year instead of the 3 that we expected. Cool, stuff like that. So we don't do a deposit, but we've been lucky with our facility that usually we just have the whole facility rented out, so it really doesn't make that big of a difference. But sometimes we'll be out plane money or something like that, and that sucks.
We don't do preschool type things like Valerie and the Little Heroes, but we have a family camp that we run, and that's for any burn survivor of any age and their family. So the benefit of it is that you have adult burn survivors and child burn survivors. So in a support group, you might have parents of a burn survivor who get to meet an adult burn survivor and get to hear their story, and then to feel like you're so well adjusted, you are amazing, you're thriving at life, you have your own family, that they see that and they feel so much like comfort from that. And then you also have siblings of burn survivors to see, you know, other survivors. So it's just, there's a lot of dynamics that the families mixing brings. We probably have about anywhere from 15 to 20 families that come each year. We just actually had ours a few weeks ago, and it was a great time. But I do realize that within that, it's hard when you just do a general family camp of all burn survivors to really meet the needs of every single dynamic that might be there. Because now you're dealing with spouses, parents, siblings. They could be adult siblings, they can be you know, adult or child siblings. There's just so many factors within it. So we try to do our best to coordinate it and offer groups and open mics and all these opportunities. But it always makes me walk away that with this term that we use in the burn community as caregiver, of it that being a very misleading term to categorize everyone outside of the burn injury. And I think really for me, I want to think of like another phrase that we can use, and then to really offer more emotional support for these individuals who are impacted by a burn injury. And I'll just share the story because this is really where my mind is going recently, was that we had a survivor's son share, and he was not born when she was burned. She was burned as a young adult, but then she had him, and he's only known her as a burn survivor. But to hear him speak during open mic was really insightful, because we would all assume that how is he impacted? He wasn't even born yet. However, he talked about his story of like what it's like to have a survivor as a mother, and that's all he's known. But also to know that like they would go grocery shopping late at night, or that like people may comment about her, or she may not want to go to certain situations, and like how that's made him view life or be a little more introspective. So, you know, all of these different storylines of how burn injuries impact different people. We also had a child of a burn survivor who was alive, and she was a young girl. She was about 12 years old when her dad got burned, and she shared her story, and it was completely different and also very impactful. So I love this dynamics that we have, and making sure that everyone is seen, everyone is given a space to talk about how that trauma may have impacted them, and what is their road of recovery, and how do they support others as well as receive support.
Anybody else have any other questions or programs that they are thinking about running, want to know more about? I would be interested to know if has anyone on the call been with their organization for like the very beginning of a program, and like what, as someone who does that apply to anyone? Like, has anyone like started a program from scratch? And then Daniel, you have. Phil, okay. What should my expectations be in terms of like, that's why I liked your perspective that people were really excited about the young adult retreats like the first 4 or 5 years, and then it became harder and harder to get people to go. And so I was like, is that how my young adult retreat is going to be? Because I feel like we've had really great attendance, but you can only talk about so much. Like sometimes it just stops becoming like new and starts becoming like, okay, well, I guess I'll go, and then until they don't go. So I guess my questions are, one, what would your advice be for someone who's starting a program from scratch in terms of expectations? And then two, if your program's been going on for a long time, like how do you keep it fresh and interesting and incentivize people to keep coming?
I'll answer your second question first about keeping it fresh. And Daniel alluded to this earlier about with the Young Adult Summit, the rotation of topics, right? I've talked about this internally with my staff, with volunteers, with people that are no longer with my organization, but are still kind of involved, talking specifically about camp, going, we've been running camp for 30 years and the 8 camps I've been involved with, lots the same, but there's this rotation of other programs and going, gosh, we really need to, I think we really need to freshen it up. Let's try some new and different things, but you have to think about it because this is what we do, right? I mean, this is what we're always thinking about. For the participants, it's once a year. For, they're happy to be there. For some of them, you have your repeat campers, you have your repeat participants, but you're always having a new influx of participants as well. So it's not as repetitive, or it may not seem as maybe it's boring for us in the planning process because it may be the same thing or close to the same thing every year, but for the participants, only doing it once a year, only feeling it once a year, it's new and fresh to them. So I've gotten over that hurdle myself. That was something that I really thought, gosh, we really need to change up these activities and sessions and things like that. And I've been talked off that ledge, and I've been able to understand that and see that. So, as far as that perspective goes, I think when you start the program, obviously you're developing those sessions, those topics, those activities for the first time. And I think Daniel has it right. You do it a few years and now you have this pool, right? And you just keep rotating through them. And if it takes 4 years to get through them, by that time, depending on what program it is, people may have aged out, people may have advanced up into different categories, whatever it may be. So don't be discouraged by thinking that you always have to have new and fresh topics and never repeat them.
I think there's been things within programs that when you lay out everything that you're able to offer the survivor with whatever capacity you have as an organization, that there's always something that they can look forward to. So I think for our kids camp, they want to age into the next age bracket to be that whatever that is, because there's a new thing at camp that they could do that they couldn't do before. And I kind of feel like we feed on that as an organization for even from that to then be like, oh, now you're applicable to go to Young Adult Summit. And then after that, it's like, now you're applicable to go to our adult retreat. And then once they have a family, now you can come to this program. And these are the things we do here. So every program is a slightly different, where I would say we believe a lot within recreational therapy and a lot within utilizing recreation as the mean to really bridge the gap and start the conversation, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by going to a support group or going to therapy or talking about their burns. But I want to give them a platform of like, let's do something fun and then put a therapeutic spin on it, or then have a support group that we welcome you to join. I think it's like World Burn Congress for me. Even if they don't go to the sessions, they're still seeing the visibility of other burn survivors, and they're still having conversations, usually at the bar, where they're talking to someone else about their burns informally, and that's therapeutic too. It may not be where they're at the place where they can attend a session in our young adult program or in our adult programs, that they feel comfortable even just being in that environment. Anytime I start new things, we're always doing new things. There's always ideas of like, we're 50 years old as an organization. And I always tell my staff and our board is like, there's so many other things we can do, so many needs that there are out there for this community. And I have a list of things that I would like to start. But since I've been with the organization, we started an adult retreat. So that's 21 and older. And that one has been extremely beneficial, especially for those people who aren't going to come back as camp counselors because they are not ready yet, either emotionally, or they may not ever be ready for us to feel comfortable to put them in charge of a child, but they want to go to camp because that's what they know. So giving them another platform of an adult camp where they can still learn and grow allows them to still be connected. We've also are starting a women's retreat, women's empowerment weekend, where we can talk about issues that women have as survivors that are different than men. And it's just a weekend of really addressing some core issues. Eventually, we would hope to do a men's retreat. Eventually, I would love to do a spouse weekend where it's just spouses of burn survivors, where we can talk about intimacy and talk about communication. But anytime we develop something, we always put a proposal before our board and talk about what the purpose is, why we're going to do it, what the structure of it's going to look like. And then I always say, I want to be honest, we're not going out to the masses. I'm not announcing a new program. Is every first year I do a pilot program and I do a super small sample of maybe 5 or 10 individuals where we try it out. And then in that pilot, we are letting people know it's a pilot, and then that we're asking for a lot of feedback. Usually what happens is those 5 people or those 10 people that are invited to it, one, feel very special because we've handpicked them to come, and they're of all different, and because we get to handpick them within the pilot, they come from all different levels of experience, those who've been survivors 20 years, those who've been survivors 20 months, and it becomes a very fruitful weekend is that they then go out and they become our ambassadors for that program. And then people have heard, wait, you guys had a program and I wasn't invited. I want to go. It then becomes also something for our community that it becomes like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be included. That then they start to want to come, which I think has also been like a driving force in keeping the program sustainable and moving forward. And I think getting that buy-in and getting the feedback of like, this is what we want or need has always been beneficial for us. And I say anytime, like, I can guess what people want to need, but if I put a new program and no one shows up, is that really what they want to need? Maybe it's the time of year. Maybe it is all these other factors that's really not a need for survivors or family members of survivors, but I think it is. So maybe I need to reshift and readjust like my priorities or what we think survivors want. So we always want to include that survivor voice. And that's why for us, like we try to hire people within our community. We try to hire burn survivors or family members of burn survivors. We try to have our volunteers be within the community, survivors or family members, so that they can give up these ideas so that we're offering effective programming.
I love that idea of a pilot program and then keeping it purposely small so that you don't overwhelm yourself or like feel disappointed and like, why aren't more people excited about this program as I am? So I actually am going to change something that I'm going to do within like the next few months because of what you just said. So thank you.
Yeah, we did the same thing too. This year we started just a women's group. We tested it out to see what the response would be like, and we shortened it from a 2-day weekend. Actually, our adult retreat used to be 3 nights and 4 days, and so we pared it down to a 1 weekend, an overnight. And we made it very specific, and we took out a lot of the extra stuff that just kind of filled in the whole weekend. Because what we found also with our adult retreats is that length of time would only service the people who were not working, retired, just have enough, they have a lot of free time on their hands, and it kind of left out those that did have jobs, that did have careers, that were maybe still in school, and kind of left them out of this opportunity. So we revamped quite a bit of our retreats to make it more conducive to everyone across the board. So the women's one, we started doing that one, and we got some really good feedback on that. So we're going to start implementing that one next year. Again, talking with topics that are very specific to women. Even our support groups, I separated them out, and we gave a specific group just for the women to talk about their needs. And then we have a co-ed, and then we have men only. Men actually spoke up and said they wanted to have their own little group to talk about things that only men can have. And so even I would, when we started it, I would get them all into the room, into the Zoom room, but then I'd excuse myself and I would move the meeting to the therapist who is male. So we made it very gender specific, gender responsive, and topics that are specific to them. And I think it's what's going to drive the participation and the reoccurrence, because they're going to start to see that the things that we're providing to the burn community will be something that they can find an interest in. They're going to see that this is something that's speaking to me, that I'm going to attend. And I think that's how you're really going to start to see the retention of your attendees is going to be whether or not they're going to get something out of it. And I try not to think about things in a bubble. Like Daniel, we try to look at everything within the whole community. Now, our area is a little bit different because we're only specific to San Diego County and Imperial County. But the two counties themselves are very unique. So I can't take what I do in San Diego and apply it to Imperial County. I have to really structure it to the community itself and make it very specific. That's one way I thought I'd just throw that in there.
We're coming up on the hour. Okay, Daniel writes in the chat that they make a year calendar where you decide, so ahead, like a year ahead of time, like when all of your events are going to be.
It was something new when I came into my new position with the organization, was that fire service people start to do their bids and their time requests out in August and that time frame. So every time a program happens, we do a debrief with the lead volunteer and then a debrief with the full team. And in that time, we say, what date are we going for the next year? And then we put it in a calendar so that by December we print out, we've done magnet calendars for the fridges. I've done like little inserts for our brochures. So when we pass it out to new survivors in the hospital or when we meet them, but we mail it out and then we bring it to our holiday parties and then we put everything on our calendar. And our goal for this year, now utilizing Camp Docs for all of our programs, is that all of our Camp Doc applications will be ready starting January 1st. So that anyone can see on our website through those calendars and through Camp Docs what we have to offer for that year, so that they can take the time off, because we want them to attend. And for the most part, many of our programs are usually the same time every year anyway. So we have a ski trip in Northern California that's always the second weekend of March, and then we have one in Southern California that's always the first weekend of March. So that's kind of just like slated that the volunteers I put in there. So it's made it easy for us to kind of just know what our calendar will look like. But sometimes rental facilities change, things change that we have to. But yeah, we try to lock in our dates the year before.
You don't always have the venue for the events, but you know what the dates are going to be.
For the most part, we do. A lot of our programs,
Yeah.
I think, are outstanding. So like
Okay.
our surf programs, or ski programs, or rock climbing programs, they've been established for anywhere from 10 to 20 to 25 years, and they just always donate. So we do have backup plans if in case they were to pull out, what we would do. But for the most part, we lock everything in. It's also October is when I lock in my budget for the year before. So I kind of plan in like calendar budgets due in October, so then we can finesse anything that needs to be finessed.
Okay, we're at the hour. But I think maybe the last like 2 minutes, Tim and or Daniel, do you want to talk about our workshop in 2022?
Go for it, Daniel.
Hopefully by this time you've all been notified that we are having our IABC workshop. Yes, finally, yes, it's happening next August, and we're super excited. Super glad that also Phil's on this call, as the Illinois Fire Safety Alliance Camp I Am is our host camp for this year. They have been amazing to work with, super flexible with us and accommodating as we've been trying to navigate what it's like to do a conference mid a pandemic. And we're also glad to be finally moving forward with our host facility at Eagle Rock Resort in Chicago area. So please mark your calendars for the conference. The registrations are live now on the website. Every member camp will be receiving a postcard in the mail very shortly as a save the date. We will be releasing our speakers starting January. So all that information will come out of what you can expect for the conference. Phil had an amazing idea, and he said that if you had already slotted the funds to come in 2021, that you should utilize those funds now and buy your participants their access to go to the conference, and then put it in your budget for 2022 and take more people. So then you put it in both years' budget, which I thought was brilliant. So if that's your organization, I would definitely do that. It is going to be a different facility than we're used to. We're roughing it usually and doing a camp type thing. This is a resort, so we're feeling very bougie this year. You will be sharing a room with one other person, so you can fill out the application and add multiple people onto one application, and you can identify with us later or on that form, like who wants to be with who and all that situation. We're flying into one airport. It says that when you register. So once you finish registering, you'll get an email from us, and then we will be requesting from you pretty soon flight details and when you're coming. So really excited to actually be moving forward with this, as well as I just want to make a plug-in already for next year for ABA. That will be happening hopefully in person in Las Vegas. We did solidify that Dr. Ruth Rimmer will be our speaker for that conference and will be presenting for us and talking about camp research and what the ABA has and what you as a burn camp can do. If you've never done it, a simple, easy survey that she's going to be giving, as well as just talking about the literature that has already been done on burn camp research, so that you can use that information to apply it into your programmatic. So if we're seeing burn survivors with a high amount of anxiety or body image for young girls or for men or whatever else there is that you can think about how do you address that within your programming. And that would be an awesome tool that we're actually utilizing the research that's being done. That's the whole point of doing research. It's not just to publish research articles in journals. It is that we take that information and we say, we need to change this. I don't want our campers to be going through this. So definitely put that on your books as well. And then reach out to the board if you have any other questions. We possibly might have some speaker spots still open, but we're pretty much hopefully going to be finalized with that pretty soon. So if you do have someone that you would be like, oh, I know someone who would totally speak on a topic, or I have a topic, I'm not sure if you guys have considered this as a board, feel free to email the board and let us know, and we'll happily see what we can do to address it during the workshop or for future even discussion groups.
Awesome. Our next discussion group is Friday, October 15th. Topic TBD. And if no one else has any other comments, enjoy your weekend.
Thanks,
See
everyone.
y'all next month.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
I do, okay. That's a facilitator. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, totally. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot either. I didn't know who was leading, and Mackenzie said she was going to be offline. So
We didn't either because the education committee is meeting